Now, on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? And he said, Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The Master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the even was come, he sat down with the 12. And as they did eat, he said, Verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I?
My name is Simon Peter. One day my partners and I were cleaning our nets after a long, hard night of fishing. We were tired and discouraged. We had nothing to show for our efforts. Jesus was preaching, as usual, to the many people that followed him from here to there, listening to his every word. He asked if he could sit in my boat, so I rowed out a little, so his voice would carry. When he finished teaching, he asked if I would row out a little further and throw my nets out into the water. I told him it was pointless. We had fished all night and caught nothing. But I did as he asked. And then, astonishingly, so many fish. The nets broke trying to pull them in. So many fish. We filled both of our ships until they began to sink under the weight of them. I felt sinful and faithless in his holy presence. Then he told me I would no longer catch fish, but men. I did not fully understand, but I left my boats, my fish, my livelihood. I left everything to follow Jesus, and I've never looked back. Now tonight, he tells us that one of these 12 men, his faithful disciples, will betray him. I vainly promised to follow him, even to death. But he looked me right in the eyes and told me, before the rooster crows, I will deny him 3 times. Deny him? Am I not the rock he called me to be? Could I lose my Lord, my friend, because I am not strong enough to be faithful? Is it I? Lord, is it I?
I've been known as Peter's younger brother, Andrew, since the day I was born. Years ago, I left the fishing business to follow that fiery preacher, John the Baptizer. He was anointed by God to prepare the way for the long-awaited Messiah. And now I follow Jesus. I love to bring people to Jesus. I brought my younger brother to Jesus and watched him grow and become a strong leader among us. I brought the little boy with the lunch of 5 loaves and 2 fish to Jesus. I even brought Gentiles to meet the Master because he is loving and open to anyone who is searching for the truth. But Jesus has enemies in high places, enemies who would love to silence him or even see him die. And he speaks of a betrayer in our midst. Oh, please do not let it be me who brings sorrow to my Lord. Is it I? Jesus, is it I?
I'm James, son of Alphaeus. Since joining Jesus' group of followers, I've seen the most miraculous things. Jesus has the power to calm the sea. Even the wind and the rain obey his voice. Jesus has the power over demons and has driven out evil spirits. And he has given us the power to do the same in his name. He has the power of healing and has taken away diseases people have suffered with for years, even from birth. Beyond this, he has the power to forgive sin. And now, one of these men who sit at this dining table, who eat and drink with him, will betray him. How can anyone doubt that he is the Lord, our Messiah? Prophecies fulfilled, miracle after miracle, promise after promise. He has called all of us to follow. Who could turn away? Is it I? Is it I, Lord?
My name is James. This is my younger brother, John. We used to work in the fishing industry with Peter and Andrew. Jesus called us to follow him on the same day that he called Peter. And we did follow him. thinking that Jesus would establish his kingdom on earth and that we would be his right-hand men. Jesus calls John and me the sons of thunder. Actually, we are the sons of Zebedee, a rich and powerful man in this community who is close personal friends with some of the more influential religious leaders. At one time, I had hoped that this would assure me a spot of power in the new kingdom. As a matter of fact, my mother suggested that I sit at Jesus' right hand when he claimed his throne, and my brother John on his left. After all, it was we who were invited to the mountain with Jesus. And it was we who saw him transfigured. His face shone like the sun, and a voice of God spoke out of heaven. He chose me. He chose each of us. How could one of us betray him? We have seen his perfect adherence to the law. We have heard the voice of God say, "This is my son." We have been present for countless miracles, healings, works that no mere man could accomplish. Could it be my brother John? Could it be me? Is it I? Lord, is it I?
I am Matthew, and before I became a disciple of Jesus, I worked in the Roman government, collecting taxes. I used to take advantage of one of the little perks of this profession, skimming a little off the top for personal use. Listening to Jesus, I've come to understand I committed a sin against my neighbors. I took advantage of those people. I cheated them. I became wealthy, stealing their hard-earned wages and goods. I hoarded earthly treasures rather than seeking eternal ones. My heart has changed because of Jesus. I even threw a huge feast at my home and invited others from this corrupt organization to meet him and perhaps be changed as well. Now he speaks of a traitor among us. Will the others suspect me, a known publican, a sinner? Is it I? Lord, is it I?
My name is Simon Zelotes, or Simon the Zealot. Before Jesus called me, I belonged to a group of hot-headed, bloodthirsty revolutionaries known as the Zealots. We believe in God, and God alone rules this holy nation of Israel. And we refuse to pay homage or taxes to any Roman governor. Now, it goes against my nature, but Jesus teaches us that God ordains powers and governments, allowing them to rule over us. So we must give them our due and treat them with respect. Well, since following the Christ, I have tried to channel my zeal into telling others about Jesus, God's Son, reaching out to them for His kingdom. Is there a traitor among us? A Roman, perhaps? How could any follower of Jesus question His power and His authority? He is God. He is our King. He is more powerful than any government. Could I somehow revert back to my old ways? Could I, Simon, betray my King? Is it I? Lord, is it I?
I'm known as Bartholomew to some, and Nathaniel to others. I am a disciplined student of the Scriptures and a disciple of John the Baptizer. My friend Philip told me about Jesus of Nazareth, saying that he was the one about whom the prophets had written. At first, I was skeptical. Jesus of Nazareth? Nazareth is a filthy, immoral city. How could anything good come out of Nazareth? But John told us that Jesus is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. And then I met this Jesus. And it was like he already knew me, knew my innermost thoughts. Although I have always been a devout man, I realized that Jesus was offering something more intimate, more personal than my religion had ever offered. For over 1,000 years, we have celebrated this feast of Passover, remembering the bitter slavery in Egypt through the bitter herbs, remembering the 10 plagues with 10 drops of wine spilled from the goblet, remembering the blood of the sacrificial lamb that allowed the angel of death to pass over the Israelites, sparing their firstborn, remembering how God set His people free. Oh, that wonderful story. How they fled so quickly that they couldn't bake leavened bread, instead making unleavened bread in the warmth of the sun. And now that Jesus is about to institute a ceremony to replace the Passover, He tells us that one of us is to betray Him. How can that be? How can a traitor be numbered amongst his most trusted friends? I ask myself, is it I? Lord, is it I?
My name is Philip. Jesus came to me one day when I was working and said simply, "Follow me." I spent an entire day with him, and I was convinced that this is truly the promised one. Now, it has taken some time for me to understand that this man, this fulfilled promise, is actually God here among us. Recently, thousands of men and women, families, were sitting along the hillside listening to him teach. Jesus asked me where we could buy bread to feed them all. Now, at first, I thought only of the actual physical cost of such a venture. Why, our treasury does not hold such funds. I gave no thought to the people's discomfort or to the possibility of a divine miracle. But Jesus took 5 tiny pieces of bread and 2 tiny fish. He prayed over them and broke them into pieces. He fed thousands, and we collected 12 baskets full of leftovers. God, here, among us. Who would deny the promised one this divine presence in our midst? And to whom would this person deliver Jesus? To the vain and arrogant priest who refused to believe that God has kept his promise? Or to the pagan Roman government that fears a rival ruler? Could any one of us forget his power, his compassion? Could I forget? Is it I? Lord, is it I?
His hands, carpenter hands, rough, weathered hands, and yet so gentle and loving. His hands reached out and touched a leper, and the disease was erased from his body. His hands touched Peter's mother-in-law, and the fever was gone. His hands reached out and lifted Jairus' daughter from her deathbed. His hands opened the ears of the deaf, the eyes of the blind, mended the bones of the lame. Countless infirmities, illnesses, deformities, gone. His hands reached out, blessing little children when others would have turned them aside. His hands reached down, rescuing Peter from a churning sea that would have swallowed him. His hands blessing, breaking bread, folding in prayer. Such simple gestures, and yet so profound. Those hands which have shown mercy and kindness, given love and healing. Those hands which served me, Thaddeus, and his other brothers, and worshipped his father. They are the hands of God in this very room. All of us have received blessing from those hands. All of us have seen the miracles those hands have performed. Who could betray him into the hands of an enemy? Will I, Thaddeus, betray him? Is it I? Lord, is it I?
I am John, the beloved disciple. Beloved, loved by Jesus, loved by the one who in the beginning was with God, loved by the one who is greater than all of us, and yet washes our feet, setting an example of servitude and humility. You might think that because Jesus calls me his beloved disciple, I have reason to be proud. Oh, how the opposite is true. I once thought I might hold a place of power and prestige in his kingdom, but he has shown me over and over the war he wages is a spiritual battle. He reaches out to the needy, paupers. He does not seek out the rich and powerful. He dines in the homes of sinners and common folk, not the elite. I once saw him equally befriend a well-known Pharisee and an immoral woman, forgiving both. God has sent his Son because he loved the world, the lowly, me, so much. So much, he does not want any one of us to perish, but have everlasting life. This Jesus, he is the way, the truth. He is life. Even though we are his closest friends and followers, I don't think we truly understand the depth of his love. I believe he would give his life for mine. How could I not do the same? Will my pride cause me to stumble? Will I betray him? Could I? Is it I? Jesus, is it I?
My name is Thomas, but those who know me best like to call me Didymus, which in Greek means twin. Even as a fisherman working the nets with Peter and his brother Andrew, I was known as a cautious man, always careful, certain of my actions, and I suppose I still insist on some assurance before committing myself. I want to see before I believe. But I'm not a man of doubt. I prefer to think of myself as a man of daring. When Mary and Martha sent word to the Lord that their brother Lazarus had died, Jesus turned to us and said, "Let us go to him." Now you should understand that our last visit to Bethany, the village elders howled for our blood. They wanted to stone Jesus. He barely escaped with his life, so naturally, some of the other apostles were reluctant to return there. I was the one who spoke out. I rebuked them, saying, "Let us go also, that we may die with him." Why do people remember my doubts, but forget my daring? Why do they recall the questions, but overlook the affirmations? Why do they remember my fears, but forget my faith? After all, I was there to witness the power of Christ's message when he spoke the Beatitudes on the horns of Hattin that first year of his public ministry. With my own eyes, I've seen him unstopping the ears of the deaf, opening the eyes of the blind, cleansing lepers, and preaching the good news to the poor. Still, in spite of all these miraculous signs, his enemies are determined to destroy him. Why? Because the God he reveals is greater than the petty, little man-made deities they've enshrined upon the altars of their hearts and temples. He would bring us all up to God, while they would cut God down to their own size. Tonight at this Passover table, Jesus has reintroduced doubt into my heart. He has said that one of us, his devoted disciples, is to betray him. Could it be he recognizes my lack of faith?
Does he see my doubts? Is it I? Lord, is it I?
I am Judas Iscariot, the treasurer of this group. I have followed Jesus, but I am growing tired of his reluctance to stand up to our oppressors. I believe he is who he says he is. But why would God send a Messiah for this? To wash feet and to serve bread? I have no need of a spiritual king. We need a political king. Someone who will rise up and overthrow these Roman tyrants. Thousands of people have followed him over mountainsides and across rivers just to hear him speak. Surely he could raise an army in no time. Someone must force him to make his move, to lead us to victory, to establish the new kingdom. A betrayer among us? Indeed. These men look at one another suspiciously around this table, wondering, guessing, accusing. They look inwardly and ponder their own motivations. But why do they just sit there like sheep waiting for a shepherd? Someone must do something. Well, I have. Tonight, the elders and the chief priest will help me to help him to establish the promised kingdom. History will thank me for this. Yes. Someone has betrayed him. Perhaps all of us will do so before this night is over. Master, is it I? Is it I?
As they did eat, Jesus took bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to them and said,
"Take, eat. This is my body."
And he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank of it. And he said unto them,
"This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed to many. Verily I say, I shall take no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink anew."
We come to your table to take of the bread and the wine. We come to your table to know you, to share the divine, to hear once again of your grace, of the Passover Lamb, sacrifice and redemption, your merciful plan, from before time began, from before time began. You are the bread. You are the bread. You are the bread of life. Take and eat, never hunger again. You are the wine. You are the wine.
Lord, is it I? The bread is broken, and the wine is poured, and once more grim gaunt of this guilt is nigh. By whom is Christ again denied, betrayed? Or should we all cry out, is it I? A traitor kisses him upon the cheek. A fisherman unsheaths his sword nearby. Did this take place 2,000 years ago? Or should we all cry out, Lord, is it I? After the supper, they went to the place called Gethsemane. And Jesus said to his disciples, sit here while I pray. He took with him Peter and James and John, and he began to be distressed. And he said to them, I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake. And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him.
Abba, Father, all things are possible unto thee. Take away this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done.
Jesus climbed the hill to the garden still. His steps were heavy and slow. Love and a prayer took him there to the place only he could go. Gethsemane, Jesus loves me, so he went willingly to Gethsemane. He felt all that was sad, wicked or bad, all the pain we would ever know. While his friends were asleep, he fought
A crown of thorns is pressed upon his brow, and bearing his own cross, he goes to die. Whose is the guilt, the everlasting shame? Or should we all cry out, Lord, is it I?